President Bush taking on the White House press corps today for the last time in what he called the ultimate exit interview. He had everybody sort of facing him and ready with their questions, and boy, was he ready for them today. He reflected a bit on some of the mistakes and some of the milestones that he believes will shape his legacy. He addressed everything from the debate over WMDs to the government's response to Hurricane Katrina. Let's bring everybody in and get talking about this. Jason Rowe is a former Romney campaign senior advisor. Kirsten Powers is a Fox News political analyst. Doyle McManus is a columnist covering politics for the LA Times. Welcome, everybody. I want to jump right in. Let's take a look at the first soundbite that we have. We have three we want to look at from today, and we'll get your thoughts.
Putting a mission accomplished on an aircraft carrier was a mistake. It sent the wrong message. Abu Ghraib obviously was a huge disappointment during the presidency. Not having weapons of mass destruction was a significant disappointment. I thought long and hard about Katrina. Could I have done something differently? Like land Air Force One, either New Orleans or Baton Rouge. The problem with that is that law enforcement would have been pulled away from the mission.
All right, some really interesting reflections. And you all remember about 4 years ago, the president was asked, up to this point, what's the biggest mistake that you made as president? And he did not have an answer. It was a question that stumped him in that press conference. So he was asked now, go back at the end of the second term, and those were the answers that he gave. Doyle McManus, your thoughts on the president's reflections on what were considered mistakes and disappointments as he categorized them?
Well, now, most of those mistakes, of course, were mistakes of rhetoric or of symbolism. Actually, President Bush added one mistake today that we hadn't heard from him before. He said that after the 2004 election, when he thought he had a mandate, he wishes that he had gone for immigration reform first instead of Social Security reform. That was kind of new. That was interesting. It suggests that he has some regret that his domestic record looks the way it does now. He wishes it had come out a little differently.
Yeah, and he, made lots of points about immigration, in fact, and sort of differentiated himself as he has throughout his presidency on that issue with other Republicans, saying they need to be more open-minded in his opinion about immigration. That's something he touched on when he talked to Britt over the weekend as well. Kirsten, your thoughts on this bite, and then I want to play another one. We'll get to Jason.
Well, I was surprised that he kind of went where he did on Hurricane Katrina, because I didn't even think, I thought it was a strange thing to say. That really wasn't the issue of whether or not he should have landed there. I mean, that was something people talked about, but I think the bigger issue was that there wasn't enough planning when they knew the storm was coming, that there wasn't,
those first 48 hours, really, of watching Americans suffering on the streets with, no help in sight, was a period that he didn't really address.
I think that was definitely a mistake on his part. He should have just stuck with the first three things that he said.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the next soundbite, because this one is also very revealing, I think. Take a look.
People still understand America stands for freedom, that America is a country that provides such great hope. You go to Africa, you ask Africans about Americans' generosity and compassion. Go to India and ask about, their view of America. Go to China.
I thought that was really interesting, and I should set it up better, because the question was about, the terrible damage that's been done to American reputation abroad, and he said he really takes issue with that, Jason. And we must remember that no president really has done more for Africa than President Bush, and a president who was said to have not traveled widely in his youth has really made some very significant inroads in some of the countries that he mentioned.
Well, he doesn't get credit for the things that he's done in the areas of development and diplomacy, and he has an extraordinary record, and those people that understand the importance of development, both in stabilizing the world, but also in figuring out ways for the U.S. to invest in the economies there, recognize that he's been a pretty extraordinary leader on those issues. Here, the problem is that those things are so overshadowed by things that seem to matter to us more here domestically, and that's the the lives we're losing in Afghanistan and Iraq, but also the money that we're sending over, particularly given the financial situation that we have in America.
Yeah, I also think the liberals are loath to give him any credit on that front. They will constantly claim that he didn't spend enough on money on AIDS, but if you talk to the people who actually are doing it, I mean, I have
no
a friend,
president has spent more money.
Yeah, I have
on
a friend
AIDS
who's working on it, who's a Democrat.
Yeah.
He's not even a supporter of his, who says it's ridiculous, it's not true. And so he, you know, there are things that he can be given credit for. You don't, you know, I still don't approve of this presidency, but that doesn't mean he didn't do anything good.
Yeah, he said, you know, when I travel around, I don't think that people are that angry with America, and that's sort of the popular elitist notion, he said. But he doesn't see that in action on the ground. Let's take a look at one more, and this one has to do with, you know, President-elect Obama and what it will be like for him when he starts to deal with some of the difficulties of the job. Take a look.
President-elect Obama will find this too. He'll get in the Oval Office, and there'll be a lot of people that are real critical and harsh. And he'll be disappointed at times by the tone of the rhetoric. And he's going to have to do what he thinks is right, Jim. And if you don't, then I don't see how you can live with yourself. I don't see how I can get back home in Texas and look in the mirror and be proud of what I see.
Well, McManus, if there's one thing that I think can be said about President Bush, it's that he stuck to what he believed, and he never wavered in the face of flagging poll numbers.
Well, that's absolutely right. And there was another point during this news conference at which the president said, you know, he wasn't surprised to get tough criticism from his opponents, but he was disappointed from being let down by his friends. He was disappointed sometimes by other Republicans, other conservatives who didn't step up and help him every time he thought they should. I thought this was a really remarkably reflective press conference on his part. The other element that you just saw, of course, was how gracious he is being to his successor, Barack Obama. The kinship among presidents has certainly trumped any notion of partisanship here.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to note, you know, President-elect Obama and his feelings. I would love to know how they've changed, if at all, toward President Bush, and how getting to know him has changed his take on the current president at all, and hopefully that will be revealed in the Obama presidency as well. Doyle McManus and Jason Rowe and Kirsten Powers, thank you. It was quite a remarkable press conference, and I'm also going to talk to, Trace and I will talk to Charles Krauthammer and get his thoughts on it in just a little while, so please stick around for his reflections on it as well. Trace, back to you.